Emulate the taste of like non-chicken nuggets. So these nuggets are made from chicken, but they're made to emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope.
Oh, that's much better.
Edit all the blather out of your videos because my time is very precious.
Oh, that's fire.
Make it less teal and more
Cerulean? Sure.
Replace your background with something more fun? The cold void of outer space.
Let's boost that sound quality. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope.
It needs more style. It needs more clips, more gifs, more. Well, I might have made it too gnarly.
Welcome to Descript's translation webinar. We are live with Alex and Aaron. You had to have a first name to start with A to make it on this webinar. Alex, my man, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Can't complain. Glad everybody made it to the webinar healthy and all of our technology is working.
Same. It was close. We figured it out though.
Yep, absolutely. If we can figure out a live, demo a translation tool, we can figure out how to make YouTube live stream works. We are excited to hear from you in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, or any other channel, we want to know what kind of projects are you translating? What's a use case where you thought, hey, I could really use this video in French? Or we already had a great question in the chat from Dr. Petra about from this language to this language. We are live actual humans with 5 fingers on each hand. So we do want to know your use cases and make sure that our examples that we give you are relevant to you. And we also expect to have a pretty broad geographic audience, since one of the points of translations is to make your content applicable to people who speak different languages and maybe even live in different countries or different continents. So we have some people doing trainings. Let us know what your use case is. Veterans benefits, trainings, medical technology. Awesome. So we already have a broad audience. Canada. Yep. And we'll talk about the logistics, but everything is going to be saved and you can watch the entire thing almost immediately after the fact if you have to step away for a minute or can't stay until the end, which is another reason to put your use case in the chat now. So we might even answer your question later in the video. Tutorials. We got a lot of medical. That's awesome. So I think we're ready to, there we go, get to the slides here and make sure you're in the right place and expect what we're going to deliver for you. We are talking translating your videos today so that language barriers no longer keep your content gated to your geographic area or your language. I am your co-host, Aaron. I help with community and marketing here at Descript, longtime user. I'm joined by Alex, who is our AI product lead. You've probably seen Alex around some generative media or translation webinars or even clips from those. He helps us figure out how to use AI in our product and lots of testing and building and developing things. Thank you for joining today, Alex.
Happy to be here. This is our Aaron. This is our third or fourth one of these together, or some kind of live session.
Yeah, I think it's our third.
Our third, yeah. With a team.
Yep. So logistics quickly here. YouTube is usually the busiest chat. We have our support team in there. Shout out Trevor. We're clocking his words per minute that he can type because he's going to get bombarded with questions. but use that for the chat. If you are on LinkedIn, X, and some of the other streams, we'll get that on the side, but we may not have somebody in that dedicated platform answering your questions. We are recording it. It's going to be sent out after the fact. It'll also live on our YouTube, X, LinkedIn, everywhere else our content goes. If there's something specific that comes up that you want more resources around, there's probably a page on help.descript.com that's going to walk you through how to use a feature or access something, including a lot of the translation features, lists of languages. So if you prefer the web page version that's more static than what we're doing, check out help.descript.com. So the agenda today, what do you need to know to get started? Because some of you are Descript users looking to translate, and some of you are people looking for a tool that can translate, and you may not have any idea what Descript is or how it works. We'll show you a quick overview of that. And then we have some video projects that Alex is going to demo live. What can I do to translate my content? Lip syncing, dubbing, the on-screen, like the little title cards and names, chapters, whatever's in your video content. And then of course, we'll have time at the end for Q&A. We will also work in your questions as we can. If it's relevant to what Alex is demoing at the time, we'll bring it up on screen. If we don't get to it, it might be one that goes to the end. So what are you going to leave here with? An idea of how do I go from this video in one language to outputting it in whatever version you need in whatever format, including batch editing those and having them in up to 20 different languages from one original project. So what's this look like? You can take your video and translate it into 30 different languages. That could be a voiceover where maybe you're showing a screen and you're just talking into your mic. It could be the captions that come up on screen. It could be the text, like a title card or a label that pops up. And we're even talking lip syncing. So you could make the lips of your speaker move to the language, not just the audio dubbing. And our AI tool basically says, okay, I'm going to redo the frames, and Alex will explain this in more detail than me, to actually match the audio. So it's not Alex's lips are moving to English, but the audio track is in Spanish or French. You can actually get those synced up. And you can also just say, hey, take all the visuals, all the text in this file, and put them in that same language as his voice. But there are some things that you may not want to translate. Those might be a name of your product or your company or something that you want to keep in your original language. And we essentially have a transcription glossary where you hard code those in and say, don't translate these. Everything else can go out in German, but keep these original. And then it knows when not to translate things. If that sounds like something that is useful for you and you go, wow, sounds too good to be true, that is why Alex is here. And we have a project in Descript. This is the interface. And we're going to start with, here's the original content. Alex, what are we looking at right now?
So we are looking, by the way, thanks, Aaron. Thanks for the primer and the intro. We are looking at a project where really, before we really get into this, I just kind of want to show a reel of the original English video here that Ashley's recorded about an intro to selecting a health plan, as well as that same video translated, dubbed, and lip synced into Spanish, Dutch, and Hindi. So, by the way, like super like transparent disclosure, I have like Wi-Fi issues at my house right now. So Fiona is the invisible star of this. She is helping drive the actual screen share, which is why you might see both of my hands on screen, and yet someone is moving their cursor and pressing the play button at the same time magically. That's not because I have a third hand. I'm not, whatever, six-finger AI Alex. We have Fiona on the line helping out. So Fiona, could you start by just like pressing play here so we can see this sort of highlight?
Today, I'll guide you through how to choose a health plan on healthcare.gov in just a minute. Hola, soy Ashley de Leonsure y hoy te guiaré a través de cómo elegir un plan de salud en healthcare.gov en un minuto. Hoi, ik ben Ashley van Leonsure, nu leid ik je. Hoe kies je een zorgverzekering op healthcare.gov in 1 minuut? नमस्ते, मैं एशली लाइनश्योर से हूँ और आज मैं आपका मार्गदर्शन करूंगा healthcare.gov पर हेल्थ प्लान कैसे चुनें 1 मिनट में.
Okay, that's just like a preview for you to see how that same message is delivered in 4 languages with audio and lip movements, as well as on-screen text, all to match. So for the rest of the demo, we're just going to walk through how you actually do that. So now we are in a transcribed and edited video. Now, if you can pull up the timeline, we can actually see like that this has been a video that's been edited. So you can see there's all of these original video layers. There's the logo. There are all the rectangle and captions and gradients and all the things that make a video interesting visually. So this is a video that's already been edited in Descript. You can translate for videos that weren't edited in Descript, but it works best for videos that were edited in Descript, and we'll get into why. But we're now going to, you've gotten to this place where you're really happy with your primary language edited video, but you now want to scale this to your audience and you want to translate this into more languages. So to do that, you'll go into your AI tools on the right side of the screen and you'll scroll down past sounds good, past looks good, and towards repurpose. And you'll see that a translate option. So clicking on that gets you into the translate AI tool. And here you have a number of options, right? So I think this has been said in the chat, like, can we do translation for just captions, for just the transcript? Can we do translations for dubbing? Yes, you can choose whether you want to translate just your transcript or just your captions, because maybe you want to add a translation to some third party like podcasting platform, or you want to like create SRT files. So you can just do that. You can just translate captions and script, but you can also translate the voiceover and the lip movements. So let's pick the languages that we want to translate into. And here you can see all the languages that Descript translates into. These are languages where we can translate captions and script. So let's start with Spanish. And as you can see, we even have different versions of some of these languages based on dialect. So we have Latin American Spanish and we have Spanish, like for Spain. And we have similar kind of options for like French Canadian or Brazilian Portuguese versus Portugal Portuguese. So let's go with just Latin American Spanish to start. And then below that, you'll see there's 2 options for style. And we default to matching timing, which what that means is for dubbing, think about like a dubbed movie you've seen. You'll notice that the dubbing voice actors, they will take care to, when they speak the new language, they will take care to speak it in a way that timing-wise works with the original video. And every language is different. Like some languages are very wordy or are spoken very quickly. So when you choose the match timing option, we optimize the translation to account for all of that when you're translating. And that's what most people want when they're dubbing with the audio. But if all you're doing is like translating your captions or translating your transcript, you might not care about that as much as having like an absolutely verbatim literal translation. And in that case, you will choose direct translation. But since for this demo, we're using match timing, or we're using dubbing rather, we will select match timing. And you can just translate without dubbing, but in this case, we're going to dub the speech. And so that gives us now some options about, well, what voice do we want to dub this into? And we have a few options. We can choose to dub this into the voice of the original speaker, in this case, Ashley, because Ashley has shared her voice with us, right? She's given us permission to dub into her voice. Or you can also translate and dub into stock voices. And we have stock voices that are sort of tuned and optimized for most of our most common languages. So we have, I think, 8 voices for Spanish that are like tuned for Spanish. And then we have, I forget how many, 30 or so stock voices that aren't tuned for any language. So they won't quite sound like native speakers, but they still sound like, I like to think of it as someone who's lived in country for 5 years. So clearly can speak the language, but you probably won't mistake them for a native speaker. So those are your options. In this case, we're going to translate into Ashley's voice because for this project, we're prioritizing it sounding like the original person over perhaps it's sounding like a native speaker of Spanish for this example. So I've chosen Ashley, we've got dubbing on, and we're now going to submit the translation. And now this takes a little bit of time to actually translate and dub because we're doing all these optimizations for like length and translation and pace and all those sort of things. So it takes about a minute or two. We'll let this run, but while we're waiting, we'll let's talk about like how we've been using this. So like Aaron, I think you've been talking about how as a content creator you've been using translation tools to sort of scale your reach. Do you want to talk about that right now?
Yeah, I think most people who are posting content on social media platforms, let's just use YouTube as an example since most of our viewership is on it today. It's going to be blocked based on the language of your content, but also the description. And one of the things that this opens up is I bet someone who speaks a different language would find your content interesting, could learn from your videos, be entertained, whatever. And you've never really had a way to redo a video in a different language without being able to speak it, or I don't know, maybe hiring a clone or having an identical twin that speaks it. But now you can use that after your recording is done. And like Alex said, you want to edit it first, then it's just a matter of clicking and selecting these. Another example would be if you're doing any kind of educational training, whether your customer base, your users, your employees you're training speak different languages, or you're even just in a multinational company that this training is going to be used by people on different continents who speak maybe 5 different primary languages. You used to have a different team produce the video content for each one of those. Now, most of those major languages are covered by this, and you can dub it, you can lip sync it, you can translate the text. That used to be something that would take weeks of different groups of people to pass back and forth. And now one person can at least do the initial version and maybe have it proofread or checked off on by somebody who natively speaks the language. One of my questions for you, Alex, while this is translating, do you have any input for our audience on when you would want to use the person's voice? So let's say Ashley as the Spanish audio versus when might I want to do one of those tuned for Spanish stock voices?
Sure. Yeah. It really just sort of depends on and if what effect you're going for. Do you want to maintain the voice and identity of that your spokesperson? Right? Is that identity important to you? Is this the voice of your brand? In which case you probably want to maintain the voice clone. Now, if that's not that important to you, and what's really most important is like the best possible Spanish accent, then you'd want to use a tuned voice for that language. And with all of these voice clones, it will sound like the original voice. So, Ashley is not a native Spanish speaker. So when she's speaking Spanish with Descript, it's going to sound like someone like Ashley speaking Spanish. So there'll be a bit of an accent. Like there won't be any major mistakes. It will definitely be the correct Spanish way of speaking, but it won't be native sounding. But yeah, if what you really care about is native sounding, you want to go with the tuned voice.
Yeah. So I think for our audience, what that means is, let's say you're doing UGC style, user generated content style ads, and you want to target people in certain locations. Sounding like the native speaker would probably be more important. Whereas if you're a content creator and your persona and personal brand is more important than having the authentic sounding accent, then maybe you keep your own voice.
That's right. And by the way, just as this is wrapping up, I'm seeing questions in the chat. People are asking a lot of these sort of the same questions. Let me just answer them right now. Can you translate from non-English to another non-English language? Absolutely. If the transcription was transcribed into, let's say, German, and you want to translate it into French, that's supported. And then another question I saw was, do you support translation for audio only? Like maybe there's no video and I just have a podcast or a voiceover. Can you translate that? Can you dub that? And the answer to that is also yes. So this looks like it's loaded, right? So why don't we play this back? Just see what it sounds like.
Hola, soy Ashley de Lionsur y hoy te voy a guiar ya. ¿Cómo elegir un plan de salud en healthcare.gov en un minuto? Antes de empezar, ten toda la info a mano.
So a few things to
Números de
note.
seguridad social y los
Oh, sorry, I spoke over it. My mistake. A few things to notice there. So you'll notice that like the transcript was translated into Spanish and it was dubbed into Spanish, and that the captions that were already there were also translated into Spanish. So you already have out of the box captions that were on the original video are translated into Spanish. What you don't have yet is the text layers, and we'll get to that in a minute. But now you have your translation. It's optimized for matching the timing into Spanish, all aligned with the original video. But I want to point out one thing here, and that's around that this was translated automatically, right? But you can overrule and edit that translation if you want to. And maybe that's a stylistic choice you have. Maybe there's a certain way you want a certain phrase said in a particular place. You can go ahead and just edit that in this translation. So, you know, and I apologize for people who are going to call me out just being wrong. I think I'm right, but like I'll be transparent and say I'm like 90% and not 100% sure this is right. That if you look at that second line where it's talking about healthcare.gov, now, as far as I understand, healthcare.gov, when spoken in Spanish, is like a valid way of saying like a web URL. That's fine. But you can also say healthcare.gov, and that's also correct. I'm going to be watching the YouTube comments saying like, Alex, that's totally wrong, but just go with me. So let's say we said, you know, actually for our brand, we prefer to say healthcare.gov instead of healthcare.gov. So we can just go right into that translation, right into that line, and we just change that period to the word that we want. And then once we're ready, we can just go ahead and retranslate it. So doing that is, you know, this is telling you that this now needs to be retranslated, or rather redubbed audio. And it's just going to generate that new speech in just, you know, 10, 15 seconds. And then we can listen to it. So you have this like first pass that's taking into account whichever you care about. Is it the literal translation? Is it matching timing? But you can always correct it. You're always in control about what you want that to be if you have brand guidelines or preferences. So let's just play that back.
Yeah, one nice thing is you only have to regenerate that line, correct? The rest of the project stays as is.
That's right.
¿Cómo elegir un plan de salud en healthcare.gov en un minuto?
Yeah, so there you go, right? So that's a quick change that you can make from healthcare.gov to healthcare.gov. Let's see. So let's say we've got our translation. We're happy with the corrections that we've made where we wanted to make them, right? Stylistically. We now can apply lip sync to this. So let's do that. The way you do that is you go into your language dropdown and you click on the more options menu here, and just say lip sync video. And now what you see is this dialog box is just checking for a couple of things, right? This is saying, first of all, hey, this is going to cost some more AI credits. Like this is more expensive than just translation. This is also, you know, video generation. So we're telling you how much this is going to cost. And then we're also giving you this call out that is about like when does lip sync work best? And so it works best when you have a person on screen, one person on screen that's reasonably centered, reasonably zoomed in, like not a really tiny person in the back of the room somewhere, right? Not like a crowd of 10 people, for example, right? It doesn't work as well for that. It works best for these talking head videos where the person's on screen and they're not wildly moving around. Like the way I'm moving around now is perfectly fine. But if I was going to be doing some kind of wild, I don't know, back and forth, coming in and out of frame, it would also not work as well. So that's something that we're like working on improving. But for now, it works great for this kind of case of a talking head video. So if you're sure you want to do it, go ahead and hit generate, and then that will then, you know, generate the lip sync. Now this takes longer. We did the audio and the translation live, and it took, I don't know, a minute or two, I believe. This takes about 15, 20 minutes. So that's not nothing. Now it's saving you a ton of time in re-recording, obviously, and finding different people to speak the right languages and so on. But it's a little long for a live demo and a webinar, so we're not going to make you wait for that. We're just going to show you like the other cake we have in the oven. And by doing that, that's what Fiona's doing right now. She's showing you a version of this that we've already lip synced. And so let's play that back.
¿Cómo hallar un plan de salud en healthcare.gov en un minuto? Antes de empezar, ten toda la info a mano. Incluye los nombres de hogares, números de seguridad social e ingresos. El primer paso es: ve a healthcare.gov y crea tu cuenta. Revisa deducible y confirma que médicos y fármacos estén cubiertos. ¿Te sientes abrumado? Hoy entramos LionSure. Toma control de tu salud y cartera. Explora ya hoy.
So there you go, right? So that if you, I don't know, I am fooled by this basically every time. Like whenever I see the lip sync video and audio, like it looks very natural to me. The lips match the audio. The audio is in the chosen language, and you now have this video that looks like it was recorded in Spanish the first time. There's one thing I want to show as well. How are we on time, by the way? We're 26 minutes in.
Yeah, we have at least 20 minutes till dedicated Q&A, but we can weave that in.
Q&A. Oh, we've got a ton of time. Okay, great.
Yep.
So we're not short on time at all. Okay, I want to show at least one more thing, maybe two more things. Let's talk about the text layers, right? So I think you probably already noticed this, that while your audio sounds great and even your captions are in Spanish, you still have a bunch of text on screen that's in English from your original video. And you probably, if you're making this video for an audience, you probably also want those text layers to be in, your chosen language, in this case, Spanish. So the way to do that is you can translate those all with Underlord. So the way you do that is you go into Underlord and you just type into Underlord and you say, translate all of the text layers in my Spanish video to Spanish. And so Underlord will think about, okay, well, what text layers are here? Like, what am I translating? And great, they're in English. Here are the ones that I found. The name I'm not going to translate because it's a name. But the other text layers that are talking about things that are translatable, I'm going to actually translate those into Spanish. And so it'll take it a minute. It'll think about, how to translate it. And then once it's done, and we can play back the video with the fully translated text layers too.
And Alex, for our audience that's not native to Descript, how would you explain what Underlord is that we just brought up and gave that prompt to?
Yeah, Underlord is our AI video editing agent. So Underlord is fantastic for taking some of the drudgery out of some of the editing work you do. It's an AI video editing assistant that can do anything from sort of simple edits to your video. Like you can even say, hey, make my audio volume 30% lower. You could do that. To really advanced edits, things like, I want you to analyze my hour-long podcast, find opportunities for me to shorten and make it more concise, edit out the filler words, remove my retakes, add relevant B-roll, and then show me like the resulting edited version. And it can do that as well. So it's kind of our all-in-one AI video editing agent. In this case, we're asking it to translate text layers for a Spanish translation into Spanish. So I think it's done, right? Let's play this back.
Hola, soy Ashley de LionShare y hoy te guiaré a través cómo hallar un plan de salud en healthcare.gov en un minuto. Antes de empezar, ten toda la info a mano. Incluye los nombres de hogares, números de seguridad social e ingresos. El primer paso es: ve a healthcare.gov y crea tu cuenta. Revisa deducible y confirma que médicos y fármacos estén cubiertos. ¿Te sientes abrumado? Hoy entramos LionShare. Toma control de tu salud y cartera. Explora ya hoy.
So there you go. You now have, we did this in 20 minutes? Okay, I know we kind of like cut out the lip sync loading time, I'll be honest. But fairly quickly, right? We went from edited English video into translated, dubbed, lip synced, text layer translated video in 20 minutes or so. So maybe we're ahead of schedule on the demo, and we'll actually have more time for Q&A. We can now just show the last piece. Can't forget, you got to actually export the thing, right? So we've been working in the Spanish version, but had we also done this for Dutch and French, we now have our 3 translations all in one place. We want to export those, share them with our audience. The way you do that is the same way you export any other video in Descript. You hit the export button in the top right, and you see near the bottom of that modal, that dialog that pops up, it's your languages, and then click on the languages, select the ones that you want to export, and then just go ahead and export all 4. And in a minute or so, they're they're exported and ready to share with your audience. So there it goes.
Yeah, and for our audience that's done any of this work before, let's say the prompt that Alex gave Underlord to change all the on-screen text. You could have done that without Underlord, but you probably would have had to have another tab open and take each one of the on-screen pieces of text and, translated it, and then go back and click on it and then paste in the Spanish or type it out manually. So you're basically trading the time and effort of that. Go back. That's probably a 5 to 10 minute task to say, hey, Underlord, switch it to Spanish for me. And now it's more like a minute. Not always perfect, but you're basically proofreading what it did instead of going and doing it manually 100% on your own.
Yeah, and thinking about how that scales to multiple languages, right? Like we just did that for Spanish, but we could have also done that for 5 other languages. And then for the ones that we want to then go ahead and correct and proofread, we can do that. And if we are more comfortable with our audience of like translating videos that we then maybe pass on to somebody else on our team or a friend to proofread, we can do that too. And then we can share all of the translated videos with our listeners and our followers.
Yep. And when those export, if you haven't used Descript, you're basically sending those to a download folder or wherever you want locally, and then you can upload them to your training site or publish them to YouTube or do whatever you want with those raw files once they're on your device.
That's right. So we can go into Q&A. I think maybe one thing Aaron, I think one thing you wanted to talk about that we haven't is probably the translation glossary. Did we want to talk about that anymore?
Yeah, just how we can essentially protect those terms or hard code ones in that you don't want to change. So say, in this example, Lion-Sure is the name of the fictitious company. You wouldn't want a literal translation of the word lion and then the word sure to Spanish. You'd want to be able to say, hey, anytime you see this in a project, keep it in the native language.
Yep, that's right. So that might be like very relevant for folks who are doing things like medical translation, where they may like terms of art or where they have branded terms that may actually look like just plain words, like maybe a company name that is just a word. They don't want that word translated, right? So they might put that into their do not translate list.
Yep. Yeah, we can start grabbing some questions here and throwing them on screen. So here's the first one for you, Alex, from a YouTube viewer. Can the text on slides be translated if the video was developed in another platform like Canva?
Not yet, but we have like definite line of sight on that. That's for sure planned. So this is asking about like we've shown translation of text layers where there's there's letters on screen, right? Can we translate that into Spanish? And the answer is absolutely. But what if it's not a text layer? What if it's just like an infographic with text in the infographic, right? Or what if it's a flat PNG image with words on it? Can we translate that? Short answer is right now, not reliably, but like coming very soon.
Yeah, and if Fiona has a free hand, I think what might be helpful to some of our viewers that aren't Descript users is when Alex says a text layer that was just put on there, as we pull up the timeline, you can see all the media stacked up in this project from the recording to the gradient. So where it says title and subtitle, that's essentially dragging text in from Descript and saying, hey, put Ashley on the screen or Lion-Share. That's what Alex is saying you can absolutely translate. If that was a picture of something or a slide from, say, Canva, that's not actually text that was natively put into a Descript project. That cannot be translated yet. But the workaround could be giving that text to Underlord and saying, hey, here's all these slides, and you can import those slides as media into a file. So you might be able to find some creative ways to make that on-screen text But for now, that's why Alex started with this tip that if you do the actual editing in Descript itself, you're going to have more freedom to translate everything than if you bring in a video that was edited somewhere else. Is that accurate, Alex?
That's right.
Yep. And if Fiona doesn't mind, could you show us just very quickly how you put some text on screen? So say we wanted to add something else on there in app. On the sidebar, you have the elements. And then you saw when she clicked text, it gives you a text box. This is all media that Underlord can say, oh, look, there's a text layer, and I know how to translate text layer to Spanish. So that's easy, and it does that very well. If that was a picture of a Canva slide or a Google slide, then it's not going to be able to translate that. So we're just saying you're natively editing this by adding media to your project in Descript. Yeah, super helpful. There's our question. Okay, next one, rapid fire for Alex. On YouTube, how can I change the language that the description detects in a video? Sometimes it does a bilingual translation. So I assume the project that this user is importing, say, maybe has some English and some Spanish or elements of Spanish. Can you recategorize the language of a video?
You can set your translation language. Sorry, your transcription language. This is a term that people get mixed up all the time, and I usually don't, but I just did. So transcription language, what I mean by that is when you import files into Descript, what language do we transcribe that initial import into? What language do you see in your script? Here it's English, right? By default, we just have this on auto detect. We just have it like, hey, detect the language from the media file and then transcribe it. In most cases, that's great. In some cases, it can miss, especially if a video is bilingual or if someone's speaking with a deep accent. Sometimes it actually can miss. But you can overrule that auto setting by going into your Descript settings, and they are just in your general Descript settings. So in the top left, there's a little hamburger menu, as we call it. And if you click on that, yep, and hit on settings, that is there, great. And I believe under transcription, it says default transcription language. Actually, right, so we were in the right tab earlier where it said general. Yep, and then just on like the main panel, right, exactly, where it says default transcription language, you can say, hey, you know what, like, just trust me on this. All of my videos are English, and you can just select English. And then when you re-import the media, transcribe it, it'll be transcribed in English.
Yep, and then I think, okay, next question, YouTube. Are brand names with numbers as part of the brand name still taboo in the transcription glossary? I assume they're saying, can I put in the name of my brand is this and it has a 73 in it?
I believe you can, but let me follow up and see if there's if there's something I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you wouldn't be able to. I think the question is how reliably does the transcription catch it, but there shouldn't be anything that keeps you from adding it to your glossary. So good, examples of how you'd use that glossary. Let's say your name is Ashley, but it's spelled ASHLI. You would say, hey, every time you hear Ashley, spell it this way. And if you have a brand, I mean, Descript is a good example. It's not really a word, and it might come through as description or the script. You can go in your glossary of terms and you're basically suggesting words like, hey, when I say Aaron, spell it with 2 A's, and with Alex, it's going to be with a K, not an X. So those would be ways that you would typically use the glossary. Yep, which when we get back in the project, we can show you how to do that.
So you actually want to use it through, you probably also actually want to access it through Brand Studio. So actually, if you go back to where you were, I believe, and you hit Brand Studio, and then you hit the glossary tab, this would be the place where you actually access your glossary. Now, we are doing the demo on our Descript internal drive. The three of us are mere mortals and are not admins of said drive. And so we aren't able to actually open up the glossary here, but maybe if we like disconnect screen share, we can pull up a test account or something where we can show you what these look like. And I know that someone's already linked the help article so you can see screenshots.
Yeah. And then isn't there a way when you correct a word in your transcript to also add it to a glossary there? Maybe we're locked out on this account since we're not admin.
I believe when you correct words in the transcript, you can add them to the glossary, but I'm also not totally sure about that.
Yeah, by default, when you correct words, it will add them to your glossary because I've had to do that multiple times. But as you are watching, audience, especially the YouTube chat, we got tons of questions in there. If you want to see something, if you have a question about a certain language or a best practice, throw it in the chat while we're answering these. So next question from our YouTube viewer. Can you just use the generated translation for subtitles so the person speaks the original language, but the audience can read synced translation?
Yeah, we can do that. So why don't we show how that is done real quick? So why don't we find the English? Yeah, this is perfect. This is exactly where we should be. So let's go back into AI tools. And then let's hit translate again. And you know what? Let's actually do this. Let's do, yeah, no, this is fine. Let's pick a language that we haven't translated into. I mean, why not Russian? I don't know. Everyone's thinking about Russian, right? Why not Russian? I'm Russian. That's why I said so. Okay, so let's do that. And then in this case, let's not dub speech, right? So we don't want to actually dub the audio here. And as we mentioned earlier, when we're translating without audio, maybe matching the timing for that way it's spoken isn't as important to us. What we care about actually most is it being as literal a translation as possible, right? And so let's click on, yeah, thank you, direct translation, and let's go ahead and submit that. And so this should load fairly quickly because we're doing like a simpler translation and we're also not doing audio. So maybe it's actually a little bit longer than I expected. But what this will do is it'll translate it into the destination language without dubbing the audio. So if we play this back, you should be able to see.
Hi there.
Go ahead.
I'm Ashley from Lionshire, and today I'll guide you through how to choose a health plan on healthcare.gov in just a minute. Before you start, make sure you have all the information handy, including everyone in your household's names, social security numbers, and income. The first step is to head to healthcare.gov and create an account, check the deductible, and confirm that doctors and medications are covered. Feeling overwhelmed? That's where we at Lionshire come in. Take control of your health and your wallet. Start exploring today.
So as you can see, like the captions that were there in that original video are just translated into the destination language. For those aspects of the video, like those like time ranges where there were no captions burned into the screen, you won't get new captions. You'll get just like as exactly the video as it appeared before, which is to say there were no captions before, there's no captions now. But if there are English captions, there are now Russian captions. But say you also just wanted to like export the subtitles for the entire video as like an SRT file, you could do that too. We can do that by hitting export. And then you have Russian selected, perfect. And then hit either transcript or subtitles. In this case, let's do subtitles. And then you can choose the format. You can do SRT or you can do VTT. And you can just export the subtitles for the entire video with the correct time ranges, and then use them wherever you want to use them. And then same thing with exporting transcript too. You can export just like a raw transcript in any language.
Yeah, and we'd love to know your use case when you ask these questions, so that we can think about what would the final project look like, or who your audience is. Yeah, awesome. We'll keep rolling with questions because Fiona's doing triple duty here with running the screen and throwing these up. Another question from the YouTube chat for you, Alex. Is there the ability to import a translation memory or glossary that we have ownership of from another platform into Descript?
Not directly. If this person is available to jump in, can we pull this person? I'm really curious about the use case. If not, I'll just answer to the best of my ability. So the translation glossary is it's essentially a place where you input terms not to translate, and like you put one term per line. I think there was a screenshot of it that we threw up earlier. So it's you have to basically copy and paste your do not translate list from wherever else you were you had one if you did into Descript term by term. There's ways to kind of format your data more easily in like Google Sheets or something, but we don't have a tool internally for that. Mostly because there's a long tail of many ways people store this information, and so rather than like building a bunch of different imports, we haven't yet. But again, that's why I wanted to bring this person in if they're available, because I'd love to hear like what format's it in, where is it, what should we build.
Yeah, GB Grennan on YouTube. If you can DM any of our social, so say LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, whatever you're on, what you have those in, or even just show us or link the file, we will make sure that somebody gets back to you and says like, hey, here's the best way to take it from the format you have to make it work in Descript. Yeah, that's a great question. Keep the questions coming in the chat so we can get Alex to show us some other use cases. I know in the education world, if you are working with a student population that you don't have a translator for at your institution, so like maybe you have someone who can translate to Spanish, but not to Mandarin or French or some other language, that would be a great use case for something like take your lecture or review or some sort of instructional video that you have. And the old way was, I don't know, like open Google Translate and hope that it gets it right. Yep. And if you are working on a team, like one of our YouTube commenters right there, and you have questions about that, there will be a link when this video is saved that you can get in touch with someone. If you go, I have a really specific use case or a unique way that we use translations. Could it do this and what would it look like? We will make sure that the right people from Descript get in touch with you and get you a demo or bring something that's bespoke for what you're working on. Here's another question for you, Alex. If a user is creating a translated version of their YouTube video, do you have to upload a second video, or can you have multiple in a publication? Which is more of a YouTube question, but
Based on what I know about YouTube, you need to then have separate uploads. It's possible they've made changes on their end since I've last checked, but yeah, as far as I know, you need to like upload separate files per translation if you care about having control of the translation. I think YouTube has some kind of like auto captions feature, but I don't know that you can do much with it.
no.
It's more like a listen, hey, you got it. It's a kind of that approach. But if you really care about what message you're sending, how sentences are phrased, you want the control of like your brand terms, your stylistic choices, then I don't think you can do that unless you upload multiple files. Like you make multiple translations here, export them, and you upload multiple files.
Yep. And some of the YouTubers that I know and see, what they've been trying is they'll test out a whole new channel for their content. So Steve, I'm just going to assume that you're a travel vlogger because that's a cool thing to do these days. And maybe you're a native English speaker. what a lot of them are doing is just starting Steve's travel vlog channel, but it's all Spanish content or it's all French content. And that might be the show notes, the summary, the description, and then of course, all of the media that's in the actual YouTube video. You could translate the captions, the on-screen text, the spoken language. And people are sort of making geolocated versions of their YouTube channel. Not that we give advice on YouTube strategy, but that versus you could upload the same video to this, your channel, but have different language versions. That would be the other way to do that. Yep. Throw your questions in the chat. We've had lots of good use case examples. Can it do this? What's the best way to do that? What's your project that you are thinking about translating your videos for? If anybody has an audio only one, we haven't had any questions about, like a screen share with a voiceover or something that doesn't have video. Yep. And the transcription glossary is a separate term than the do not translate list. Okay, here we go. Alex, if we would like to create subtitles, not a voiceover video, can we edit the SRT file against the video in the Descript platform to ensure that words appear at the correct time on the video?
So the degree of editing you have on the SRT file is very similar to what we talked about earlier when we were changing healthcare.gov to healthcare.gov. You're basically line by line here making edits to the text in order to change it to be what you wanted to say. What you can't do is change like the starting and ending point of each of those blocks, if that makes sense. So like Fiona, maybe you can show this, and I know it's like annoying doing this with like a bunch of Cyrillic script, or you can do it in the Spanish one. That's fine too. Whatever you're more comfortable with. But you can look at a video where changes you make to the text here get reflected in the captions that are shown. So I think there's some captions in like the fourth block. I want to say you should check me on that, but somewhere there I think there's some captions. Maybe it's the fifth one.
Ve a healthcare.gov y crea. Verifica deducible y confirma médicos y fármacos cubiertos. ¿Te sientes abrumado? Entramos en LionSure. Toma control de tu salud y dinero. Explora hoy.
So you can make changes there to the text, and like this will be a little bit of like, I think maybe not quite the example you're asking for, because this is dubbed, right? So by changing the words in this block, you're going to be changing the captions, and you're going to be changing the speech that's said. But if you were doing the same thing on a video that you were translating without dubbing, right? You were just translating on-screen captions, then those changes you make to this text would be reflected in the video, while that original English audio was still intact. Does that answer the question? And if not, I'm happy to answer a follow-up, because that may have been a bit roundabout.
Yeah, GB Grennan on YouTube is the MVP so far in the question. So
Great
if
question.
you need further clarifications, throw it in the chat. But the next one from Mystery Loves Company asks, can you change what word is emphasized in the audio? So I'm assuming they mean emotional tone or emphasis, like really raise the pitch when you say this word or something like that. Do we have any control when we translate over the tone?
Not yet. There's a way of doing this that we're experimenting with, but it's. I mean, listen, if I was doing this right now and I was just feeling like experimenty, I might try this right now, but I'm not going to make Fiona do that. But we're experimenting with this, is what I'm trying to say, and I wouldn't recommend doing that right now. Not because it's going to sound worse. It's just not going to work reliably. But we're thinking about it, how to make it work better.
Yeah. There are some ways with avatars that you can have control over the tone, but that's a separate feature than the translation.
For future.
Yeah, great question. Any other use cases, questions? Can I do this? Let us know in the chat here because we have a couple of more minutes before we throw up a QR code for your feedback and follow-ups, because we know some of you are going to want to talk to someone on our team about your specific workflow or application of translations, and you want to know, okay, but can it do this for us, and what would that look like, or how many seats do I need? And we can make sure that somebody follows up with you right away. Alex, I think one of the questions I have is, how does the lip syncing work? I think, the translating the text, even though we may not speak different languages, we kind of have a concept of how that works, and maybe even the audio. But say from the original clip with Ashley on screen who was speaking English, how do you get the lips and the mouth and all? It seems like a very complicated problem on a basic level for us non-AI product people. Like, I definitely am not that. How is that working?
Oh man, on it's the magic of audio visual researchers who do crazy dark magic in secret rooms across the continent. The first of all, there actually is going to be, we're actually going to put out some more detailed like articles and blog posts about this fairly soon, so like stay tuned for that. But the very like dumb version of this is that we're basically taking a look at the person's like an image of the person's face in the video that's been uploaded, and using that as a reference to understand like what does their face look like when it's speaking and like both speaking and actually not speaking, and then based on that making some educated guesses for how each syllable and each phoneme. Oh, there's actually a different word for this for like visual phonemes. Phonemes are auditory. Would look like when it's being said. So that's like the really short and bad version, but there's a much better answer coming soon in publication form.
Yeah, awesome. And then it looks like we'll end with this one. Question from Claire on YouTube. Does the dubbing work if you have an animated video? So I imagine like an avatar, or a cartoon or something that's not a human with a human looking face, mouth, and nose.
Not as well. It's definitely tuned for humans. I think we've done some tests on like non-human faces, and it's not as good. It works better for photorealistic humans.
Yep. Awesome. Well, we appreciate everybody who's taken the time this afternoon to come learn about translations and how you can take your original video content from any of these dozens of languages and turn them into educational training videos. It looked like a lot of medical industry here in the chat. People were talking about, training maybe future medical students, nurses, doctors. We had some veterans that were training other veterans. Spanish speakers, which is awesome. We will get you kind of the wrap up here in a moment as soon as we can get to it, including the follow-up. I usually have control of the screen, and since some of our backstage partners are having to click more buttons, they are doing double and triple duty. So if we may not have that follow-up actually, so here's what we'll do instead. When this goes out, you'll get an email that links to the recording. There we go. We can put it there too, so you'll definitely get it. But what we ask of you, 3 questions on this QR code up here. If you could pull out your phone and give that a scan. It will take longer to pull out your phone and get it to pop up in your browser than it will to actually fill out, we promise. Or if you prefer, Trevor in the chat is Johnny on the spot with the link. You can just click that from YouTube. That helps us know how it went, what you thought of this. We also had some questions about just Descript as a platform beyond translations. You will see in the archived content on all of our social platforms, we do Descript 101. Our local celebrity Marcelo shows up and teaches us the basics, where the buttons are, how to make a video, what a scene is, how to make them look good, how to use Underlord. We also do those live at least once a month. You'll see a Descript 101 or a Descript 201. If you have any feature requests or topics for webinars, this QR code is the best place to get those to our team. You can also see on the Luma page that Trevor just put in our YouTube chat all of our future webinars. If you want to get a notification for those, and it'll say something like, hey, tomorrow Descript has Descript 201 multi-track. You have 2 speakers. How do I edit a project? Or future translation videos. When Alex's team builds in new cool features to this, you will get notified from that Luma page. But in addition to your feedback, Alex and I and the rest of the team really appreciate your time, because that is your most precious asset. And if you are one of those, hey, I work with a team and this is what we do. We train medical students and we have to turn our content into 5 different languages and trust that it's accurate because people are doing surgeries and prescribing medication with it. Scan that QR code and we will make sure that somebody in our team gets in touch with you and you can get some customized, this is what it can do for you. Or if you want to see a demo based on your content, we can have somebody in our team go turn that into the German output that you need, or Russian, or whatever that would look like. If you have language requests or things that you heard us say not yet, put that in the feedback, in the comment. It looks like Alex, Japanese is getting some love for a suggested next language. So I'm sure there's a roadmap somewhere of what's coming next, because we did just update all of those. What about January? A whole new group of languages were added.
I think Japanese is available. What's the request? Japanese is one of the languages, right?
Yeah. And we do have a list. So Trevor has shared the help article. I think.
Yeah, we have Japanese available for captions as well as for dubbing, and we have a couple of voices that are tuned for Japanese.
Yep. I think it sounds like they're wanting Japanese transcription.
Transcription.
Yes. So that's the perfect one. Put that in the feedback on that QR code, and we'll make sure that we get a look at that. So other resources, if you're not in our Discord and you want to find other people that are making cool projects, or find somebody who's a Descript expert to help you with one, you can hang out there with our other users and members of our team. We also have weekly support. So that's more of a troubleshooting. I'm having an issue. Our support team is live on YouTube every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And you can basically hop in the chat and say, I'm having this issue. Can you help me? Discord has office hours as well. It's a little more informal. It's kind of like a hangout session. And that's going to be Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Usually there's Marcelo, Trevor, sometimes a couple others that hang out there. And then check our Luma for future webinars. One of the other requests, especially on socials, if you have a project and you want to know what could Descript do with my podcast, my YouTube channel, my training videos, my webinars, we actually love to do the grunt work and the editing. So for example, if you have a weekly live stream that you talk about your product or your business, but you want to know, how could I make clips or turn it into email newsletters or repurpose it? Trevor from support just put a link in the YouTube chat. We would love to talk to you about featuring your content or project on one of our webinars live. And the best part is we will do all the work for you. You can just show up and critique our work. So say you're a long form creator and you know you need to be creating clips, but you're not sure how to do that or what makes a good clip. Our team will clip your long form videos for you and we'll turn it into a webinar, and we'll call it How to Clip Your Long Form. And you won't have to do anything besides show up and roast our work. So this will be sent out. We really appreciate you, Alex. You've spent a lot of time, beyond being on the webinar, building this tool and making it work. So thank you for what you and the members of your team have done with all the testing and designing and developing this pretty awesome feature that's never existed before.
Thanks for having me on. And yeah, this is a fun feature to work through. It's a really cool application of like really interesting technology to real problems, right? I think it's one of the clearest use cases for AI generated speech. It's like scaling your reach to other languages and lip sync as well for generative video.
Yep, absolutely. And if you're making that kind of content on socials, tag us so that we can engage with it and promote it to our audiences as well. I've been your co-host, Aaron, joined by Alex. On behalf of the whole Descript team, thank you. Have a great